Let's read into the network externalities, which is Bandwagon effect and Snob effect, both of which are very important for your CUET prep. In our analysis of demand, we have assumed that demand for goods of different individuals are independent of one and another. That is, demand for Pepsi by Amit depends on his own taste, his income, price of Pepsi, etc., and does not depend on Swati or Amitabh Bachchan's demand for Pepsi. Let's say. So, if you know demand and you've read into the chapter till now, which is a fairly easy chapter up till this point, something that you've already read in both school and your undergraduate level. Um, this is implied, or this can be implied, that demand for one person is not dependent on demand of another person. The assumption of independence of demands of different individuals enables us to derive a market demand function for the good by simply summing up the horizontally the demand for different individuals consuming a good. So if you would know what market demand looks like, sorry about that. Okay. Market demand is, let's say this is the demand curve of one individual, this is the demand curve of another individual. The market demand curve is just the horizontal summation of all of this. So if this was, let's say, 4, this is, let's say, 5, this is going to be 9, this is going to be your first point at 9, and subsequently you add up horizontally all the demands of different individuals. Let's say this was individual 1, this was individual 2, this is going to be the market demand function, which is simply the summation of 1 and 2's demand if there are we're assuming that there are only 2 individuals in the economy. Hence, because one person's demand is not dependent on another person's demand, we are simply able to sum up horizontally the same goods, the demand of different individuals consuming a good. However, in the real world, demand for some goods of an individual depend on other individual demand for them. So this is our assumption in economics, but if you come to reality, it is possible that one individual's demand is dependent on another individual's demand. In such cases of interdependence of demand of different individuals, economists say network externalities are present. So, if one person's demand is dependent on another person's demand, you say there is a network externality which is present. It may be positive or it may be negative. Network externalities are a special kind of externality in which one individual's utility for a good depends on the number of other people who consume the commodity. For example, a consumer's demand for telephone depends on the number of other people owning the telephone connection. People want telephone connection so that they can communicate with each other. If no one has a telephone connection, it is certainly not useful to you to determine a telephone connection, to demand a telephone connection. The same applies to demand for fax machines, mobile phones, modems, internet connections, etc. Internet connection is very useful to you if there is some other individual or institutions have internet facility with whom you can communicate. It's very intuitive to understand. Let's say if you're living in India, you would be aware of something called a landline, which is obsolete now. People used to have landlines, shifted to cordless phones, which were non-wired. Landlines were wired usually. Then there was a shift to cordless phones because landlines became obsolete, because communicating on a phone which is central to the whole house, for example, was became obsolete altogether. Everybody had their own personal phones with which they could communicate with other people. So people started to not demand landlines or cordless phones at all. Rather, they started to buy mobile phones because there was no need. Nobody else had that phone anyway. Similarly, for internet connection, you would want or require an internet connection when you let's say for example know that when you have to fill up an application for a form for, let's say, a job opportunity or um, an examination, you know that you have to go to the website of that particular institution and put in your application rather than going offline to their office, etc. Right? So, which is why you would require an internet connection, right? Of course, you require an internet connection for different things, but yes, this is one reason. So, if the other people or the institutes did not have an internet connection themselves, or if they did not have a compulsion of going to the website and applying there, then you would maybe not require an internet connection, right? So this is called a network externality. It can arise through a fashion or stylishness, the desire or demand for wearing jeans by girls influenced by the number of other girls who have chosen to wear them. Wearing jeans have become a fashion among the college going girls in metropolitan cities in India. To be in keeping with the fashion, more and more girls have opted for wearing jeans. This has led to the increase in demand for jeans. However, it may be noted that network effects here go two ways. It is better if there are some others who have adopted the fashion, but if too many people are going to do this, the fashion falls out of style and adversely affects the demand for the good by others. Another type of network, which is why we said that network externalities can be positive and negative. We'll see. Another type of network externality arises in case of complementary goods. The intrinsic value of a good is greater if its complementary good is available. Thus, if it is not worthwhile to open a CD disc store in a locality if only one person in the area has a CD player. If the number of people owning CD players increases significantly, desire for opening CD disc store or for manufacturing CD will increase. Thus, the number of individuals who own CD players, the more CDs will be produced. In this case, the demand for CD players depends on the number of CDs available, and the demand for CD discs depend on the number of people having CD players, right? Thus, this is a more general form of positive network externality. So basically, your demand for a particular thing would depend on another people's demand for that particular thing. You would want to set up a CD house or a CD disc store when people in that particular locality have CD discs or a CD disc player, right? Otherwise, there's no point. Who's going to buy from you? Let's move on to the bandwagon effect. Bandwagon effect and snob effect were introduced in the economic theory by Harley Lepstein. See in Bandwagon Effect, Snob Effect, and Veblen Effect and Consumer Behavior in Quarterly Journal of Economics, Volume 62. If you want to read further, the page numbers are given as well. The existence of positive network externality gives rise to the bandwagon effect. Bandwagon effect refers to the desire or demand for a good by a person who wants to be in style because possession of a good is in fashion and therefore many others have it. This is how we define bandwagon effect, which is it is a desire or demand for a good by a person who wants to be in style because possession of a good is in fashion and therefore many others have it. So the demand is derived by style and because you want to be in that possession, in possession of that good because it is in style or in fashion, and so a lot of people are going to buy it. It may be noted that this bandwagon effect is the important objective of marketing and advertising strategies of several manufacturing companies who appeal to go in for a good as people of style are buying it. Let us explain how to derive a demand curve for a good incorporating the bandwagon effect. This is illustrated in 6.4. On whose x-axis we measure the number of units of a good in question. Suppose consumers think that only 10,000 people in Delhi have purchased the good. This is a relatively small number of people compared to the total population of Delhi. So the other people have little incentive to buy the good to satisfy their instinct of living in style. If I want to be in style, I would want to buy a good that a lot of people are buying because I want to be in style, because I want to look stylish or be stylish, whatever. um, but if only 10,000 people are buying it, and let's say the population of Delhi is 2 crores, then it's not sufficient, right? Only 10,000 people, it's not in style then. However, some people may still purchase because it is an intrinsic value for them. However, some people would still want to purchase it if they think that it has some kind of value, intrinsic value, that good has some kind of intrinsic value for them. In this case, the demand for the good is given by the demand curve D10. That is, this is the demand curve. Okay. Now suppose that they think that 20,000 people have purchased a good. This increases the attractiveness of the good for them. As a result, they are induced to buy more of the good to keep themselves to live in fashion or style. If more, let's say 20,000 people are buying it, then it would stand here. This leads to the increase in demand for the good, which causes the demand curve of the good to shift to the right, say to D20. Now, the demand curve is shifting because there's no effect in price, no increase or decrease in price, which is why it cannot move along the demand curve. We have to shift the demand curve because the number of people who are buying it has increased. That's the factor at play here. If the people believe that 30,000 people have purchased the good in question, this further raises the attractiveness of the good, and as a result, people's demand curve for the good further shifts to the right. Let's say D30. Thus, more the number of people the consumers find have bought the good, the greater the demand for the good in question, and further to the right, the demand curve for the good lies. This is a bandwagon effect. Thus, a bandwagon effect is an example of a positive network externality in which the quantity demanded of a good that an individual buys increases in response to the increase in the quantity purchased by other individuals. In due course of time, people come to know how many people actually buy the good. However, in addition to the bandwagon effect, the quantity demanded of the good depends on the price of the good. If the price of the good in question is ₹100 and at it 20,000 people buy 20,000 units of the good, the relevant demand curve is D20. Now, if the price of the good falls to 40,000 people buy 40,000 units of the good, and the relevant demand curve is D40. The intersection of price of 100 at 20,000 people, D20. The intersection of price of 50 at 40,000 people, which is mentioned, which is what is written around here. Thus, actual market demand curve DM incorporating the bandwagon effect is obtained by joining the points in the demand curve, all of these demand curves. It should be noted that the movement along the demand curve individually represent how much quantity of a commodity is demanded at various prices if no bandwagon effect is operating. So movement along the demand curve, any demand curve, if you move along that demand curve, there's no bandwagon effect at play, it's just the prices at play. Thus, the price of a good falls from 100 to 50, the quantity demand of the good will increase to 25 units of a good along a given demand curve, D20. So, if this is falling at 50, the quantity demanded is 25, increases to 25 because the price has fallen. No relationship whatsoever to the bandwagon effect. However, actually, as a result of fall in price and the resultant increase in the quantity purchased of the good by others, has increased the will increase to 25 units of the good along a given demand curve D20 as a result of pure price effect when no bandwagon effect is working. So if there's a change in price, you move along the demand curve. However, actually, as a result of fall in price and resultant increase in the quantity purchase of the good by others has created a bandwagon effect. However, when there's a decrease in price of the good, other people are going to buy that good, and hence you're going to move to a higher demand curve, or the rightward demand curve, because of the bandwagon effect. And as a result, the price of 50 units quantity bought of the good increases to 40,000 units, right here. Thus, a 15,000 units increase in the quantity demand is a result of the bandwagon effect. So, the increase from 25 to 40 is the bandwagon effect. It is also evident from this analysis, in case network externalities are negative, so that bandwagon effect makes the demand curve more elastic. Also, we see that the demand curve is becoming more elastic, very evident in the making the demand curve more elastic. It will be seen that demand curve DM, which incorporates the bandwagon effect, is more elastic than the demand curves because it's getting more flatter. Flatter curves are more elastic. Snob effect. In case network externalities are negative, snob effect arises. Snob effect refers to the desire to possess a unique commodity having a prestige value. Snob, if you know the meaning of snob, you would understand how this makes sense now. Snob effect works quite contrary to the bandwagon effect. The quantity demanded of a commodity having a snob value is greater the smaller the number of people owning it. Rare works of art, specially designed sports cars, specially designed clothing made to order, very expensive luxury cars. For example, the utility one gets from a very expensive luxury car is mainly due to the prestige and status value of it, which results from the fact that only few others own it. Snob effect is illustrated in figure 6.5, where on the x-axis we measure the quantity demanded of a snob good, and the y-axis shows the price of the good in lakhs. Suppose D1 is the relevant demand curve when people think that 1,000 people own the commodity having a snob value. Now suppose the people think that 20,000 people are having this good, the snob value is lowered and you move down or leftwards. As a result, demand for the good decreases and the demand curve shifts to the left to D2. Again, if the people believe that 30,000 people happen to own the commodity, its snob value or prestige value is further reduced. As a result, desire or demand for it further reduced. The demand curve further shifts to the left at D3. Further, if it is thought that 40,000 people possess the good, the relevant demand curve is D4. The relevant demand curve is D4. As a result of snob effect, the quantity demanded of the good falls as more people are believed to own it. You see, ultimately people come to know how many people actually own the good if we join the points A, B, C, D, E, which represent the quantity demanded at the different number of people owning the commodity. And thus incorporating snob effect, we have the market demand curve DM dash. It is important to note that Snob effect makes the demand curve less elastic. Very evident, right? It's becoming steeper. The demand curve, it was flatter here, it's steeper. Thus, at price 35 lakhs per luxury car, its quantity demanded is 10,000. Now, if price is reduced to 15 lakhs per luxury car, its quantity demanded would increase to 50,000 per year. This one. Because we're moving the price, reducing the price, we're moving along the same demand curve which we were talking about initially. 50,000 per year. And if Snob effect was not present, we would have moved down along the demand curve D1. But in the presence of Snob effect, quantity demanded increases from 10,000 to only 30,000 cars. From 10,000 cars, we actually have moved to this level, 30,000 cars. This was the price effect. Yeah, they've shown it here. This whole is the price effect. The increase in demand caused due to the decrease in price. Whereas this is the Snob effect, which caused the demand actually quantity demanded to fall from 50 to 30, because these 20,000 people actually are snobs or um, prefer the value of a particular good to be more, or the number of people demanding it to be less, precisely, which is the Snob effect. So this is a Snob effect, because of which the net effect essentially is going to be 30 at 15 lakhs price. In figure 6.2, the Snob effect has reduced the full effect of the fall in price, so that net effect in increase in quantity demanded is increase in quantity demanded from 10,000 to 30,000. I hope both of these are very clear, because they are wonderfully explained in the book, could come in your examination as well. I hope this was helpful. All the best.